Okay, hear me out for a minute. You know the game that's getting absolutely slated? MindsEye? What if I said, I don't think it's as bad as people make out? Yeah, you probably think I'm mad, but stick around and here's my reasons why. So just to be clear, I picked this game up for £12 and it's about 6 months after the game first came out. So the reviews from 6 months ago could be reviewing a completely different state of the game. But here we are, 6 months later. I'm seeing IGN give it a 4 out of 10, Eurogamer gave it a 1 out of 5, and on Metacritic it's sitting at 37%. I don't think it's the mess everyone makes it out to be. I recently just finished the game, and I'm going to tell you why I don't think this is as bad as people make out. Okay, from the beginning. For me, MindsEye isn't a game that's trying to be the next AAA blockbuster like Cyberpunk or GTA 6. This game has more of an old school charm that reminds me of simpler sort of times on the PS2 and the Xbox 360. You know, just popping in the disc and blasting through a straightforward cover-based shooter with some driving thrown in. To me, that's what MindsEye is. It's not a massive world, there's not loads of side quests, well, none at all. It's just a simple linear game that we would have enjoyed going back about 15 years ago, maybe longer. The game took me about 13 hours to complete and I got all the achievements on 1000G. But I don't feel the game's overstayed its welcome. You know, there's no fluff or filler content that padded the game out. You know, some games will go on for 50 hours plus just for the sake of it, and there's just boring content. This knows exactly what it is. It's a short game and it's pretty upfront about what you're getting. Sure, the story is a bit cliched, but sometimes you just need a simple game like that. Basically, comfort food for gamers. Now, why has it got all this negativity? This is just my opinion, but I think a lot of it comes down to the expectations of the game. Obviously, you had Leslie Benzies, the bloke behind some of the GTA magic. The trailers, okay, yeah, maybe they kind of made us believe it was like going to be some open world epic, but perhaps we hyped that up ourselves based on our own assumptions. And when it didn't deliver a GTA type vibe, that's when the mob came out. IGN call it uninspired, Eurogamer says it's a mess, but 6 months later, I don't see a lot of that myself. I'm hearing people say it's the worst game ever. I've played thousands of games and I've suffered through way worse than those, and they didn't get half as much stick as this game. Remember those sort of bargain bin shooters from the early 2000s? MindsEye's are levels above that. I mean, yeah, it's got some technical issues, bugs here and there, like bad enemy AI or some wonky physics, but it wasn't anything game breaking on my playthrough. The graphics, yeah, I think they're pretty solid for what they are. Not completely photorealistic. Not every game needs to melt your GPU, does it? I think the core loop of the game, it works. It's quite addictive. It's essentially a cover shooter with driving. You duck behind cover, pop out for a few headshots, pop in a vehicle and do some chases. Again, not setting the world alight, but it does a job. The driving feels a little bit arcadey, not really realistic, but it's exhilarating. You have moments where you can drift around the corners. For what it's worth, it's competent. I thought the levels were well paced. Normally, you get in a car, go from A to B, then you normally have a shootout. It's just a simple core loop. Again, the story, as I said, was a bit cliche, so I wouldn't say I was overly invested in the story, but just for 13 hours of mind-numbing gameplay, it did the trick. You know, you've had a busy day at work or, you know, just with life in general, and you can just sit back, easy to play, easy to control, and beats having to log on to one of those live service grind fests. So yeah, to reiterate, no, it's not the best game, never will be, but it is definitely not as bad as people make out. As I said, I've played thousands of games, which are far worse. None of those got half the stick that MindsEye's got. I think the expectations were very high because of Leslie Benzies, but put all that aside, and you've got a game that's relatively fun to play. My verdict, I'd give it a solid 6 out of 10. It's not reinventing the wheel, and it won't go down as a classic, but it was an enjoyable 13 hours from what I played. I've played games that were absolute slogs. Endless fetch quests, paywalls here, paywalls there, and I've seen them get better reviews. So what I say is, don't let the critics put you off. I wouldn't pay full price for the game, gotta admit that, but if you can pick it up for £12 or whatever like I did, you'll see that it's not that bad of a game. And I think you'll be surprised if you cast all the negativity to the back of your mind. Let me know in the comments, have you played it? If so, what did you think? Am I being too generous, or do you agree that people are being too critical? Again, just my crazy opinion. All I can think about is I've played games that are 100% worse and got far less hate. Thanks for watching, see you next time.